We are days away from an election in Manitoba where Heather Steffanson's Progressive Conservatives are making the Prairie Green landfill search central to their campaign. The PCs have launched ads that they will stand firm in not searching the landfill, where police believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron, two First Nations women, are suspected victims of an alleged serial killer, were taken. Federal Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Gary Anandasangari says it's the province standing in the way of federal help.
It is something that is deeply troubling when this issue is politicized during a campaign, and I will leave it to the people of Manitoba to decide what those options are. But I can tell you, from a federal perspective, we've been at the table from the beginning. We do need the province of Manitoba to be at the table for us to get to the right place on this.
Okay, we have our Manitoba election panel back for more insight into this and the broader race. I'm joined by Mary Agnes Welsh, a principal with Probe Research, and Kelly Saunders, associate professor at Brandon University. All right, gang, really good to see you again. Mary Agnes, walk me through this. Why at this stage of the campaign has Heather Stefanson and her team made this such a focal point? This is on billboards, this is in ads. Why are they doubling down on this position?
Yeah, I think there's honestly sort of three reasons. First, I think it does galvanize their base. And I think they're at the stage in this campaign where they're seeing it likely slip away. And this is about saving as many seats as they can and really galvanizing that base. I also think that Manitobans are genuinely sort of split on this issue. There's a core of Manitobans who are not convinced that this is the right path forward, searching the landfill, that maybe the money could be spent on other things that are related to missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I also think it is just a little bit of, trying to position Heather Stefanson as a bit of a stronger, more decisive leader, somebody who will say no. Whether she's saying no to the right things, that's up to the voters.
Okay, that's very interesting analysis on that, because Kelly, like, I understand the challenges with this search. It's about $184 million, I think, at the high end is what they say, a low probability of success because of the nature of how that landfill is compacted and what's put there, and there are health risks to the searchers. This is what the feasibility study lays out. But I understand that, but why to make it such a big thing and put it on billboards in the city where Morgan Harris's daughters live and would see that potentially? You know, I was confused by that. What's your sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's really disturbing. You're literally seeing a political party trying to capitalize on a horrific, traumatic crime, and for political gain, and that's something that we're not used to here in Manitoba. We don't usually like our politics that dirty, and so I think this has really caught a lot of people by surprise. Even if they are, not sure about whether or not a search is actually warranted or worthwhile or going to be productive, as Mary Agnes just spelled out. It does seem, though, despite all of that, that the morality of it, the ethics of it, to see a party, to try to use this for political gain is really just crossing a line.
When we've talked throughout this, Mary Agnes, the conversation has been that success in Winnipeg is crucial to everybody here. So you talked about this as a move to galvanize the base. The base for the Progressive Conservatives is largely outside of Winnipeg. I think maybe I'm oversimplifying there. How would this play in the city itself, and in particular in Heather Stefanson's Winnipeg riding of Tuxedo?
Yeah, probably not great in the city. I think, city dwellers are obviously a bit more left-leaning, and I think it probably plays to a narrow segment of those City of Winnipeg voters. I do wonder if this signals sort of a little bit of a last-ditch attempt to shore up some of those a little bit swingy rural ridings and some of those really kind of swingy, more conservative seats. But I think for Winnipeggers, Kelly's right. It feels like there's an element of cruelty to it. After a campaign that maybe hasn't been quite as negative as some people expected it to be, especially with a lot of the sort of the background on Bob Canoe that we maybe expected the Tories to play up a little bit more. And now at this late date, there's this really, I think it is kind of a painful thing to see.
Kelly, is it sort of a, Mary Agnes calls it galvanizing the base as they see things slipping away? Is this a save the furniture type approach down the stretch?
Yeah, I really think so. I think they're trying to create this as a wedge issue. As I've said before, the house is on fire and they're trying to save the furniture. This is really what some have said is a real desperate attempt to try to, salvage their base and whatever seats they can outside of the city, so they've got something to build from moving forward. But again, even out here in rural areas, it's not playing, I think, the way that they really hope that it would. This is not going to be an issue, I think, that's going to motivate people to get out to vote necessarily. It might, if anything, just turn people away from
Mm.
voting. So I think that it's a desperate attempt, but I don't think it's going to reap the kind of benefits the Conservatives were hoping for.
So Mary Agnes is interesting because throughout this we've talked, and too close to call was a minority in play, in terms of where the voter dynamic was throughout the campaign. The language you've both used now suggests to me, from my perch in Ottawa, that maybe Wab Kinew is in the driver's seat here going into the final days. Is that your sense? What are you watching for?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think some of the early polling had kind of mid-campaign polling had Wapkunu with a pretty big lead in Winnipeg, and the scuttlebutt now seems to be from both parties that a lot of those really too close to call seats in the southern suburbs are kind of leaning, a little bit more NDP. I think there'll still be some tight races on election night, but I think if pundits were thinking, okay, the NDP might get 30 seats, the bare majority is kind of 29-30, maybe it's 31-32. I think it's
Hmm.
maybe looking a little bit, the momentum is definitely on the NDP side, I think.
So when you say southern suburbs, we're talking the southern suburbs of Winnipeg. Is that,
Winnipeg.
for those of us who
Yeah.
don't know, man, that's who you're watching election night for the clear signs?
Yeah, almost exclusively. But then, as Kelly knows, Brandon East, Dauphin, there are these kind of pockets of rural. People are also talking about Dawson Trails, which is kind of almost a Franco-Manitoban
Right.
kind of riding just south of Winnipeg, but rural. So yeah, I don't think it's a sweep. It's not a sweep. This isn't going to be a big NDP kind of sweep. But I think probably that we're seeing a little bit more of a tilt towards the NDP, just based on pure scuttlebutt at this point. We haven't seen any new polling numbers, not from us and not from other pollsters.
Well, I have to do the old cliche. The only poll that matters is the one on election day, of course, right? And that's coming on Tuesday. So, but Kelly, do you share that same sort of sentiment right now? I mean, where do you see this race at this moment with just hours and a few days left?
I do. I see the NDP clearly has the momentum, and I think that as long as they stick to their messaging, they don't allow the Conservatives to rattle them and make them angry and sort of react negatively, which is what they're hoping to do with their negative advertising. As long as they stick to their message and just steady as she goes until Tuesday, I think we are looking at a majority NDP government.
Okay, well, we'll find out, won't we? I'm on my way to Manitoba on Monday. We're going to be broadcasting from there Tuesday and Wednesday, the day before, the day of, and the day after. And you guys will both be part of the coverage. So, Mary Agnes Wells, Kelly Saunders, thank you so much as always.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great to be
See you
here.
next week.
All right. And as I said, Power and Politics will be in Winnipeg for special live coverage of next week's election. Tune in on Election Day, that's Tuesday, and get reaction to the results and the fallout the very next day on Wednesday.